Hello and welcome to the GrapeSEED Official Podcast. In this episode of the All These Things series, we'll focus on writers. This episode will focus on writers from Units 3 to 20. We will talk about writers in 21 and up in a future All These Things podcast. Writers begin in Unit 3 and go all the way through Unit 40. These workbooks will give our students practical writing practice, but like everything in GrapeSEED, this practice is not done in a vacuum. Writers will always contain exercises that reinforce the reading skills tools students are learning at other points in their GrapeSEED lesson. For example, in Unit 3, the first writer gives students practice writing the focus phonograms taught with shared reading poems in that unit, C, N, E, and X. Naturally, as students grow in confidence and ability, the content of the writers evolves. When students have had a lot of practice with assembly lessons on the whiteboard, the writers will start to introduce similar activities within them. When students start learning multi-letter phonograms in Unit 9, the writer will reinforce these too. Remember, everything in GrapeSEED is designed to be connected. Writers should never be a silent activity. As students are writing, they should be saying what they write to help reinforce it. If they are practicing phonics sounds, they should say the sounds as they write them, whether they are single or multi-letter phonograms. If they're filling in a blank in a word, they should be saying the sound of what they are filling in and then the whole word. The writer section in your teacher manual will have more unit-specific guidance on the types of activities your students will be completing and what they should be saying as they do them. Just know that in general, writer time is not silent time. So how will writer time look in your classroom? Your lesson plan will outline when writers are to be done in your lesson plan. You will need to quickly transition from the other materials you are teaching into writing time, so you will need tables, pencils, and erasers ready to deploy quickly. You will also need to take a minute or two to clearly explain the assignment. Typically, you will have students complete a spread of 2 pages in each lesson where you teach writers. Let's look at an example of how this works. Let's say the lesson plan calls for you to finish your lesson with the song and then the writer. After you finish the song, you'll need to get out tables and writing utensils along with the writer books themselves. Then sit students down to explain the assignment before letting them loose to complete the assignment on their own. This all sounds like a lot, and it is, but in this podcast, we will walk you through all the things you can do to keep this time as effective and efficient as possible. We will first talk about preparation. More time is typically lost because of the teacher's lack of preparation than because of students taking a long time to write. The first thing to consider is your classroom space and the availability of tables. Tables for your students to write on are certainly recommended, but may not be practical in some school situations, such as very small classrooms. If your classroom does not have access to tables, it is usually enough to have students sit on the floor and put their writer on their chairs to write. If you're going to use tables, have them in a place where you can get them out quickly. If you have older students, you can have some of them help you if tables are easy to set up. Next up is seating. You want children to have enough room to spread their book out and write without bumping into their neighbors. If students are writing on their chairs, this can be pretty easy, but with tables, you will have to think of how many students can comfortably fit at each. In either case, consider assigned seating during writers. That doesn't change for the entire school year. If you know where each child is, it makes it much easier to get their books out to them ASAP. If they're sitting in a different place every day, a lot of time can be lost as you pass out the books. Let's move to the books themselves. In your prep time, as you get ready to teach a new unit, clearly label each book with the appropriate student name on the back. The clearer your labeling system is, the better, as you want to be able to hand the books out quickly. Older students can help here as well if they can read the names of their classmates. As much as possible, keep the books in good condition. These can be special things for your students, but if you spill something all over them, it can really bring down the mood students have for writers. Now on to pencils. You will want all pencils sharpened and ready to go as you start a writer activity, so you don't waste time having to sharpen them during your lesson. Try to have your pencils be as similar as possible, color, length, size, etc. You don't want one pencil with cartoon characters on it and the rest be standard yellow pencils, because the students will all want the one special pencil and may feel badly if they don't get to use it. Avoid that whole situation with one standard set of pencils. Erasers will finish off our preparation discussion. You will have to decide what your eraser policy will be. You might think initially that all students having their own eraser is ideal, but you will have a variety of personalities and writing styles in your classroom. Some of your students will never use an eraser and write quickly and sloppily. Others may erase the same line over and over, wanting to write something absolutely perfectly before moving on. In these scenarios, your messy writers will finish very quickly, while your perfectionists never finish. It is usually better for the teacher to have the only eraser and students raise their hand if they want something erased. That way you can maintain the pacing of your writers better. You can tell the perfectionist to keep going and the sloppy writer to slow down and try again.
Goodbye, my friends, goodbye. I'm sad to say goodbye. It was a good day, but now I will say goodbye, my friends, goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.